Welcome. Whether you're new to the Unearthed Life or you've been here for a while, I invite you to join me in conversations with incredible people as we continue to learn from one another. I believe every person holds value, a unique purpose, and a perspective shaped by their life. There will be laughter and there may be tears as we experience life together. Please visit theunearthedlife.com for more content or to connect. Welcome to the Unearthed Life podcast. I am here with Mary Ellen Owen. She is a therapist and a friend and a genius at what she does. She also helps with story work with the Allender Center, and I'm just honored to have her here with me.
And I am honored to be here and excited about this.
As I want others to get to know you, how has God been loving you lately?
Well, I knew this was going to be the prompt question. And so really, I think it's been like sweet, small little whispers or light, like lights along the way. And I've found that if I slow down, I am far more aware of his orchestration and the idea that's in Isaiah 30, I think, 30, maybe 11-ish, when it says, your teachers will be hidden no more, whether you turn to the left or the right. You will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. And I've just been really grateful for that. And I usually rough ride over it, or I go too fast to be aware of it. Mm-hmm. But I've been intentionally slowing down to meet God in those spaces. And crazy little things happen. You know, just following. It's like you're following prompts. Mm-hmm. And it's playful of God. It's also very sweet of God. And it feels really intentional of, this is where I want you to walk. This is the next thing. This is the thing right now.
Yeah.
Do you have to answer the question too?
Oh, good. I can give you an example. I am trying to be more aware and more present as well. When we are on walks or outside, I'm trying to be more intentional of seeing things that I just wouldn't naturally look around. I'm trying not to use music or earbuds or listen to things so I can be present with just nature and even the people that walk by me.
Yeah.
You know, just to be present to them as well. I have come across beautiful animals, which I wouldn't have noticed before, like a bird or an eagle or a falcon in the sky. That's not a natural thing for me to have noticed in years. I love it now where I'm like, oh, that was for me. Okay, I got it. I see you, God. Okay. Because I'm excited and intentionally look for those things where I'm like, okay, God, what do you have for me today? Because I'm just really open to seeing his beauty and where he's at.
Well, it sounds like it takes you right into wonder and not only God's doing this for me, he wants me to notice, but the beauty and the nature of creation, but more so he's coming to you in that way because you're noticing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it just stirs my heart of, oh, you see me.
Yeah.
You have something for me today.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah, you know me.
Yes.
Things that would get my attention, things that would throw my heart towards, oh yeah, that's awe of you.
Yeah.
I'm in awe of you. I would love to share with people and have you share with people your kind of recent, but not recent focus on helping people through grief and grieving. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it is something, it is so needed. However, It is something we're all scared of.
Yes.
When I was thinking about talking to you, I thought about different personalities with grief of there are people that turn towards it and want to look at it so they can heal. And then there's other people that are so unaware or scared. Either way, it's scary.
Yeah.
But they just try to pretend it's not there.
Yes. Or outrun it.
Right. And there's goods and bads to both. So anyways, but I would love to hear your story of where this started. I know there's a story behind it. And then where you have seen and learned about the grieving process as you've worked with people through it.
It's such a big topic. So I'm so aware of time, but I would say off the bat, I operate in two big categories of grief. There's acute grief, and there's more the ambiguous grief, or I wouldn't say chronic, but sorrow that lingers. And all acute grief, like the death of somebody, the divorce, loss, when it slams in like that, often it's almost impossible to turn away from it. But that will eventually become lingering grief that will beckon and turn towards. And also as a counselor, I'm almost always dealing with the more lingering grief, or the grief that we can easily and not so easily outrun. Meaning grief in story, grief in that's tucked away inside and deep in our hearts that, like you were saying, afraid to turn towards. And I think when you're dealing with grief and story, then you have to back up, right? So there's all of us, nobody escapes the idea of harm, trauma, heartache, hurt, wounding in this broken world, right? And so I've always operated out of a framework of it's not ever the trauma or the heartache or the story. It's the combination of when you were young, when you were hurt, it was harm plus isolation, meaning there was no comfort. There was no safe adult caretaker, somebody helping you move through that kind of harm. And so whatever it is, and it's different for everybody's story. And we get to be the purveyors of what counts. You know, like you can go through horrific abuse, but that you didn't get asked to the prom is the thing that took you out. Right?
That's interesting.
So it's different, the different harm. And I think it's one of the Kingdom of Darkness is really genius strategies, that there is such a spectrum of like hurt feelings that never get resolved unto wrecking ball moments or lifetimes of trauma. And they all reside. They reside until they're comforted. And so grief is such a necessary part of opening the door to comfort. And I think people are afraid. I've been a therapist for 25 years now. I don't think that there's ever been a time when there's the invitation or the coming up to the idea of grief, of holding the story of harm differently. Meaning you're not managing your pain anymore. Like you are available to remember that story with kindness and sorrow and anger on behalf of the younger you or the younger version when that story happened. And so I don't think there's ever been a time where hesitancy comes up and fear and anxiety about And it usually takes the form of, but if I start to cry, what if I don't stop crying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody says that, but I think the truer fear, the deeper fear is the unspoken. And I think that really is more, what if comfort doesn't come?
Mm.
And the remembering the story connected to the story. So you are re-experiencing a degree of the harm, repeats with isolation.
Mm.
What if I, as the counselor, really missed them, or they don't feel the Spirit of God as comforter? Like, I mean, one of the primary names of the Spirit is comforter.
Right.
So obviously there's something about comfort that is restorative and healing. And so, it can be called other things, right? It can be called surrender. It could be called repentance. But no matter what it is, when you are delving into a story of harm that you have managed in any number of ways, deny that it's there, pretend that it doesn't hurt, cope around it. Meaning like, okay, well, if I was never special in my lifetime, I never felt special in my family, I will annihilate that need. Whatever we've done to cope with it, to make it go away. When you come to the realization and the life place of, it's not working.
Yeah.
It's not working. You come to that crossroad of, you can double down and retrench your ways, your defense structure, your coping mechanisms, whatever you want to call it, or you can surrender. And so I think the humility that it takes to say, I have come to the end of myself and I am in need of the other. And really, ultimately, we're saying capital O, other. Like, I am in need of God. I'm in need of a Savior. And the risk of moving into sorrow and anger, sometimes there's an interplay.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, one is harder for the other than the other, usually for people. I was very, very good at anger. I was not very good at sorrow. Is coming to a place where you are surrendering and softening and opening to and allowing the sorrow to come. I don't think that healing is possible without that. You don't have to weep. Like, sometimes people's actual physical tears don't come, but the pausing there and the letting the sorrow just be there and the softening be there of, like, I don't hate that little girl in that story anymore, or I'm not afraid of caring for that part of me is I don't think you can heal without that posture and that experience heart-wise.
Yeah. A couple things that I was thinking about is maybe a definition of what grief is. And also, I feel like my experience, I was angry too. I didn't have words. I didn't have names of emotions. I didn't have an explanation or was taught what to do with the underlying things. And there was a quote I saw, I don't even remember who it's from, but I sat with my anger long enough to notice it was grief.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know that quote.
And
Pinterest.
I know,
There's
right?
lots of good stuff on Pinterest.
But it kind of took me back because I realized that that's why I was so angry, is the grief. But then I went, well, how do I grieve? How do I grieve? I don't even know. I haven't been taught to sit in my grief and that I'm going to be okay. It's not something we're taught to do. And that's why I think it's also scary, is because we don't naturally go towards something we don't know and are comfortable with. The other question for you, I would say, is like, what have you seen and what do you think are the maybe effects of not grieving? Or, if you meet someone and you hear this, people have told me this over the years, is I would tell a story and it so like flat, like no emotion. It had a lot of not so good stuff in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, do you realize how flat and unemotional you are with your story? I was like,
no.
What
do you mean?
Yeah. I don't know what emotions to put with it, because if
ungrieved.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would be the effects of ungrief?
Here's the thing. Like, ultimately, grief is a means to an end, right? The idea of grieving or opening to sorrow or opening to holding the story different is a means to an end. Getting stuck in the grief, that's why people always, the dog therapy, they're like, no, it's just navel gazing and you're just sad all the time. But it's a means to an end. In that, when you learn a practice even of grieving, and there's a softening and a surrender. I always define grief as embodied surrender, meaning you are really connected to. It's not just the story is playing out in your head. Like you can feel the emotion. You can feel what it's like to be there. It's kind of like you have one foot in the past and one foot in the present. Ultimately, it's a way of newness. It's the gateway to how now do you want to live. And I also have been really reworking some of this in my head. And I think it is the primary way of, in 1 Corinthians 13, like love is patient, love is kind. And like Paul goes through this from verses 1 to 10, this just description of love that is like, I don't know if I've ever experienced that or loved that way or any of that. And then verse 11, it used to sound so non sequitur to me. But like verse 11 is, when I was a child,
I thought like a child.
I thought like a child. I did like a child. Now that I'm an adult, I put off the childish ways. And I used to be like, what? That's so random. But it took me a while to realize, oh, he's saying that because the childish ways, which I don't appreciate his verbiage. Like, I think of it as like our defense mechanisms, the way we have coped with our stories, the way we have demanded control over our story it's going to come to a certain point where it now hinders the kind of love he just described in the first 10 chapters. And so I think the surrender is and the grief is unto the possibility of newness of now that I'm an adult. And so now I have a much better shot at being formed into and transformed into a person of great love, someone who loves well. Yeah. And so it's always a means to an end. It's never a stuck place.
Yeah. No, I get that. So here's an example, and maybe you can walk us through it. So somebody comes to you and you realize like they're still stuck in that 10-year-old or 15-year-old in their story, and they haven't even touched those emotions and truth to their story. They've just used their coping mechanisms to kind of either ignore it, hide it, change the narrative in their mind to be able to go forward in their own lives, not knowing that this history is still affecting how they live.
Yes.
What would you suggest, or how would you take that client through grief and opening and teaching them how to grieve?
Well, you make a key point of changing the narrative, like holding the narrative. You don't change. Children, young people were excellent story readers, horrible story interpreters, right? So anyone, all of us do this. If there has been harm plus isolation, in that isolation, we've come to our own conclusions about what this means, right?
Yeah.
And so we've carried the interpretation, and therefore the way we're going to manage that interpretation. Like for me, one of my very painful stories is I overheard my parents talking about me. I was eavesdropping on them when I was probably 12 or 13 years old. And my dad was clearly angry at me and telling my mother that my anger in our family was ruining our family. And ultimately he was saying, I have to go. And I remember being it altered me in the way that I was sitting there listening, eavesdropping on them. And terror set in of, I did not know that people kicked out their 13-year-old daughters. I did not know. And I eventually got up off the stairs. I was sitting on the stairs and went into the kitchen and confronted them and let them know, but I powered up, right? So I'm terrified and I'm heartbroken, but what I do is go in and power up. And I'm 13 and I confront my dad and I'm like, don't you think it's your anger? So I
says so much about you.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like, so that's already well established as my style of relating, because what's mostly true, far more true, is I'm scared and I'm heartbroken that family is so fragile that I didn't know that I was on the line, that I didn't know. And so, but I went in and I powered up. Now, the problem is they both knew, my parents both knew that I heard that whole thing. And after I made my grand entrance and my grand exit with a lot of anger, I was in my room by myself and neither of them ever brought it up again. And so I carried the interpretation of, you better skate a very thin line because this is all up to you. I knew my dad was the angry one, but I'm setting myself up now for, I've got to watch my P's and Q's. I've got to behave a little bit better. I mean, I didn't become like a good girl or anything, but I just got good at sneaking. I got good at lying. I got good at a double life, like a partier and then good kid, kind of good kid. But all of that to say, I wouldn't be able to get to the grief unless the story surfaced and how I interpret it. So I feel like when doing story work, you move through the offices of Jesus. Like, this is how I was trained: prophet, priest, king. And I mean, God forbid it's ever linear. It's not linear, but like the prophet, right, disrupts and brings truth. And so when you're sitting with somebody that you are helping them see a different interpretation, you're not changing the story, but even connected to the story and coming to see, this was about my dad. This was about my dad's anger and him feeling out of control. But I would have never said that at 13.
Right.
And that my parents are so disconnected from their 13-year-old that they don't come and check on me that night, the next night. Like, and that's where the harm set in. So if I can create space of, because another agreement I made out of that story is, clearly I don't matter that much to my dad if he can just kick me out, instead of be like, hey, why are you so angry? Like, maybe we should get you some help. I did have that awareness. like, I hold that story differently with kindness and with the like, oh, little one, like, you felt so vulnerable. You were scared out of your mind, and something about family altered to you and belonging and mattering. Until I get to what is true in a connected way, I won't be able to grieve. I think the prophet speaks first, right?
Yeah.
The interpretation or the narrative is messed with. Yeah. And then I feel like the prophet hands you off to the priest or the priestess, right? And then there's this opportunity to just live in the sorrow of like, it's so broken. It's so broken. And you were not supposed to be so shattered and so sure that you don't matter by the time you're 13 years old. Yeah. And then I feel like the king or the queen, like the offices of Jesus as king, but I'm a female therapist, so I call queen. Like in its time, it's like, okay, now how do you want to live? Let's get up off the floor because you are freer now. The story hasn't changed, but the power of the fueling of the defense mechanisms, like I operated with a ton of anger, still do. And just this morning, like I'm realizing, I'm like, gosh, this flash anger in me. And I feel like Jesus said, and I'm realizing what it is, and I'm realizing what it's connected to. And so I was like, all right, I got to do something with like forgiveness and offense. I felt like Jesus really playfully was like, don't forget, repent.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I think probably my favorite verse right now is Ezekiel 26:36. And it's the one where God says, I'll give you a new heart. In the NIV, it says, I'll take your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Yeah. But in the NLT, it says, I'll give you a new spirit. I'll put a new spirit in you, and I will give you a new heart. I will take out, and it seems like God is doing all the work. I will take out your stony, stubborn heart and give you a tender, responsive heart. And you're like, oh, this is the whole thing. This is the putting off your childish ways so that we become participants in the tender, responsive heart. And I don't think there's anything we guard more than that. Right. Like when I pray around that verse, I'm like, oh, I say I want this, but I am very aware of my hesitancy around it too. Of like, because grieving is a return to vulnerability, and it's a return to the past vulnerability, and it is a return to and it is a saying yes to the present vulnerability and the go forward. Ugh. That's another reason why people like, we don't really want to do it.
Right. We will continue our conversation with Mary Ellen in the next episode. There's so much here and so much more to go. So we wanted to give you a little break between to process the information, but look forward to the next episode.